Hi, it's Keisha here, back for another video. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're hanging in there. And today, I wanted to talk about being a woman, being over 40, and living for yourself. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Keisha Dent. I am a certified hypnotherapist. I help women over 40, over 50 to overcome anxiety, overcome depression, to be able to manage emotions, be able to step into the next chapter of your life, to live it on your own terms and to cut through any confusion that often can happen. A lot of mixed messages that can happen whenever we enter this chapter of our lives. And so I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit because this is something that I feel like is important to me and that weighs on me. So I noticed, like, beginning in my late 30s, something kind of didn't feel a little bit right. So oftentimes by the time we reach middle age, and yes, I do believe that middle age begins at like the late 30s, in my personal opinion. That's when you start to like feel a little bit different, start to change, you notice changes. Even if it's just emotional, psychological at first, that's up to me. But beginning in my late 30s, I just kind of noticed taking just a stockpile of my life so far. And I kind of looked back and I realized that things that I used to really enjoy, I didn't enjoy so much. I noticed that things that didn't bother me would start to bother me a lot. And I noticed that things that would make me happy to do actually often started to make me resentful. And one big theme that I noticed when I started to just kind of take stock and look back over the years of my life, and one thing I realized is that for the first few decades of my life, I had this habit of putting everything and everyone else first. And I was always the nice girl, right? I don't know if you can relate. I was always a nice girl, the girl who didn't need anything, who always wanted to make it about you and about what you needed, and wanted to always decenter myself and put my own needs, my own wants on the back burner. I was always the independent woman, right? That's someone who didn't need to do anything for myself, didn't be given anything, didn't need any help. I could do it myself, right? You know, I was always the one who was in the support role, who was always supporting other people, who wanted to be there for other people. But if I needed anything, you know, people would ask me how I'm doing. The answer is always fine. It's always great, even when it wasn't. And whereas in the first few decades of my life, this didn't really bother me, right? I just did this because this seemed to be who I was, or so I thought. But I realized as I got older that in fact, it's not who I am. And it's just a way that I've been trying to express my value to other people by saying, look how strong I am. Look how independent I am. And ultimately, look how non-threatening. Look how non-scary. Look how supportive I am of you. Don't you love me for that? Don't you like me? Please like me. Please love me for that. And I realized that in the end, though, the joke was on me, because all of this time that I'm giving away, all of this energy, decentering myself, putting what I needed on the back burner, and there were times when it was good for people. And this is part of who I am. And I love supporting, I love serving, I love helping and healing and all that. But I realized that this aggressive need to overgive, to overserve, to overhelp other people actually was kind of chipping away at my own life force. And I realized this over time. And it just kind of all came crashing on, you know, by the time I was on the eve of my 40s. And this just kind of brings up this really important topic that I think especially affects women of a certain age when we give away our power, and how society often conditions us to behave in this way, to measure our goodness, to measure our value by how small we can be, by how convenient we can be, how nice we can be, how supportive we can be, how non-threatening we can be. And so I found that my emotions began to shift when I got older, and I started to feel a lot more anger and a lot more resentment where it wasn't. And it's so funny because a lot of times society will give that sort of excuse to women, towards women, like, oh, well, here she goes, she's going through menopause or perimenopause, or she's going through that midlife thing. And honestly, I think a lot of these feelings that come up, it's not biology, it's wisdom speaking. It's the fire that you're born with that has been denied for so long, just not willing to be denied anymore. And it's very funny because I'm actually extremely into astrology. If you know anything about me, I love astrology. I'm learning more and more every day, and it is a life-changing thing, and I really love the symbolism. And right around this time, we go through transits of some of the longer orbiting planets. And what I love about it is because it, believe it or not, right, it actually puts into really succinct terms and symbols of what you often feel when we hit those ages. Like, for example, there's something called the Uranus to Uranus opposition, where basically Uranus is a planet of rebellion. It's a planet of breaking away from tradition, from conformity. It's a planet of breakthroughs and big ideas and shaking off old, outdated thinking patterns, and instead choosing freedom, choosing greatness for the collective, for yourself, over small thinking that keeps you stuck in a box. And isn't that exactly what you feel? You're right. Like I feel like a lot of us feel this, and I think it's very fascinating. And I wanted to just kind of talk about that for a moment and just kind of dissect that and how society often plays a role in stuffing ourselves down and playing so small. So that's when I decided no more. Like, I am going to live this new chapter for myself, and I was going to do things differently. And so this has kind of been definitely a new mantra, a new chapter in my life, for sure. And so today I kind of want to talk about, if that is you and you're ready to do that, 5 ways to reclaim yourself, right? If you feel like you've been living for decades, living for someone else, let's talk about 5 ways to challenge this and to reclaim yourself. So the first thing, number 1, is to ask, what do I want? And I know this sounds simple, but for many of us, this actually can be a challenging thing to get there, because oftentimes by the time we get there, right, many of us are spouses, your parents, and devoting your whole life to be in the service of certain people and things and missions, and asking, what do I really want? And having the courage to be honest about that can be bold and can be very scary. But it's important to really tap into that and to spend some time asking, what do I actually really, really want? Number 2 is to create space where you can actually hear yourself. And this is important because basically what you want to do is you want to separate yourself from the voices of other people. And especially with many women, especially, this also can be something that's challenging and difficult to do because for so long, we often will tie up our wants and needs with the wants and needs of other people. So it's really important to create space, to create quiet. This can be done through journaling, it can be done through meditation, but you want to make sure you have time alone, which again, for many of us, depending on our lifestyle, being parents, having families and careers and all that, it can actually be difficult. But it's really important to separate out your own voice from the voice of the world, which can get very, very confusing very quickly. Number 3 is to identify what drains you. So this is important as well, because it's whenever we feel as though our energy is depleted, being drained, we're not feeling ourselves, we're not feeling powerful, we're not feeling, really the way that we want to feel. It's important to understand what is causing that, the sources of that, the triggers of that. It's also important for the second chapter of our lives to figure out, okay, well, what needs to be cut away? What needs to be edited? What can we kind of snip out and just leave alone by the wayside? Number 4 is to reconnect with your inner child, right? So she's still very much a part of you. She's still there. And your inner child is actually where so much of your purpose lies. It's where so many of your passions, your skills, your talents lie. A good question to kind of kick this off is, what did you love doing? Like between the ages of, say, like 6, 7, 8 years old, what could you do all day? What did your family say you're constantly doing, you love doing, you could do easily, you could do effortlessly, right? Like for me, that was writing. And that's definitely something that I enjoy to this day. I make sure I incorporate it into what I do. It's a huge part of my work. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. And not doing that and cutting that off has an adverse effect. So it's really important to ask yourself, what did you like to do? And how can you access that and bring more of that into your life? And number 5, the biggest one, is to choose one very soul-aligned, selfish action to take for yourself for today, okay? And you want to try to do a little something for yourself every day, even if it's small, but eventually you want to do something big for yourself. It's really important to understand and to treat yourself like you matter. Okay, so just like everyone else has gotten their needs met, it's time for you to get yours. So if it feels uncomfortable, start small, but then see if you can make it a little bit bigger every day. Okay, so these are just some simple things. And of course, you can always do this on your own, but if you want assistance, if you're ready to step into the next chapter of your life and you would like a guide to help you to step into the next chapter, by all means, you can certainly reach out to me and sign up for a free consultation. And again, my name is Keisha Dent. I am a certified hypnotherapist, but more than anything else, I just want to remind you and leave you with this always, that in order to change your life, you must first change yourself. It's super important. It starts there. So thank you so much. I hope that you're enjoying this day, a beautiful spring day where I am. I hope it's also the same there where you are, or a beautiful fall day if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. But I thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, take care.